who can take the steps that we need to do to formally open today's meetings. And welcome, Joyce.
Welcome. I note that Jesse Olzak, representing the Director of the Division of the Budget, and Chris Curtis, representing the Commissioner of Taxation and Finance, are participating in the meeting via video conference from the New York State Division of Budget Conference Center at the Capitol Building, Room 131 in Albany. Notice of these locations has been made public, and the public has the right to attend and observe the proceedings from these locations. I will ask for motions and seconds to call to order the meeting of the agencies and of the various committees. I ask for a motion to open the HFA, HTFC, and AHC meetings.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
I will now ask for individual votes from each HFA, HTFC, AHC board member. Chairman Adams.
Aye.
Ms. Visconakis.
Aye.
Mr. Olzak.
Aye.
Mr. Curtis.
Aye.
Mr. McIntyre.
Aye.
Ms. McGowan.
Aye.
And Ms. Miller.
Wilson.
Ms. Miller, because I didn't have her on the
Ms.
list.
Miller.
Aye.
I ask for motion for SONYMA.
So moved.
Second.
I will now ask for individual votes from each SONYMA board member. Absent objections, I will accept the previous votes of the chairman, second, Commissioner Visconakis. Mr. Freeman.
Aye.
Professor Ford.
Aye.
I ask for a motion for the SONYMA Mortgage Insurance Committee.
SONYMA board.
Mortgage insurance.
We just did the SONYMA
What
board.
first?
Oh, but that's right. You're keeping me on my
Jesse,
toes.
aye. I'll motion, whatever.
Do you need me? Aye.
We're here at seconds for mortgage insurance company?
Yep.
Okay. Absent objections, I will accept the previous votes of the chairman, Mr. Olzak, Commissioner Visconakis, and Ms. Miller, right?
Right.
I will ask for a motion of the HTFC Governance Committee. Do I need that? Governance.
I'll give you one. I'll make the motion.
Okay.
Second.
Second?
Second. I'm not sure about on governance, but I'll second it.
I now ask for individual votes from
Overreach.
each HTFC Governance Committee member. Absent objections, I will accept the previous votes of the chairman, Mr. Olzak, and Mr. Curtis. Right?
Yep.
That works.
I will ask for a motion for the HTFC Audit Committee.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
I now ask for individual votes from each HTFC Audit Committee member. Absent objections, I will accept the previous votes of the chairman, Mr. Olzak, and Mr. Curtis.
Okay.
The meeting of the various, did I get it? Yes. The meetings of the various boards and of the audit and governance committees are officially open. As items are presented to each board and committee throughout today's meetings, these motions and seconds will be used unless specific items call for a different vote, unless any board member or director wishes to record his or her vote differently.
Thank you, Diana. Thanks, everyone. Again, before I turn to Ruth Ann for her report, a couple of notes. I received some helpful communication from David Price from GOSER between meetings. And David, I don't know if you're tuned in or listening or here today, but the staff here at the agencies has responded to your observations and will be commenting on them. And Alex, I think, incorporating David's suggestions, several of them into some resolutions later today. So just wanted to acknowledge David's reaching out to me as the chair from GOSER, as we work on this integration of GOSER into the agencies. And so thank you, David, for that and for the staff's quick response to that. I also, as I've done before, just want to salute Ruth Ann, the team that prepares the board materials. I mean, we only met like 3 weeks ago. I think Wallace and I were talking about this yesterday. Just seems like we were here just,
Deja vu.
Deja vu. But seriously, the materials are so well prepared. The minutes of all the meetings are so thoroughly recorded and reported. And I look at that. We all look at that carefully. And I suspect people here say, well, Mr. Chairman, that's our job. These are public meetings under the Public Authorities Law. We are bound to do this, but it's done with a level of care and precision that's just remarkable. A lot of us serve on other boards and read minutes and things like that, and the record here is really, really well done. And I just want to salute the staff that does that, Ruth Ann.
Thank you.
To you and the team. Now, in the minutes, there are a couple of things I just wanted to briefly mention, which we might not get to today because I have some materials, but. First, he's not here, but Dave Capel said, why don't we use Google Maps to identify project sites? We do now. Thank you, Mr. Capel. In Miami, people will notice that every single project, the 4 we're looking at, is clearly identified using Google Maps in the board materials. Member Ford, Professor Ford asked about the MWB goal plans, has several times, and we still, I think, Ruth Ann, I don't know when the forum is for a chance for members, especially newer members, to review those. Our annual, but we were going to.
We're going to do it next. We're going to do it at where do we? We're in March. We're going to do it in April, right? Yes.
And at the
Because it was so short from last time to this time, and we had a bunch of other things. So we have some time and thought space, I think, on the Thursday
Is
agenda.
Carrie here?
I mean,
Carrie
April.
Torres? No. So we had a very good call with ESD to address some of Professor Ford's points about the state law and our ability to go beyond in terms of some of the things that we're doing. They were very receptive to the comments that are being made at other places. And what they offered was they're going to review with their legal department, and they offered to come to our April board meeting.
Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah, and do a presentation on these issues. So, we are keeping our fingers crossed that they'll be able to make it. But that's...
Yeah, we should carve out some time, and if they can do that, I think there'll probably be a good number of questions. It's just, and as you know this, Wallace, everything in the state around MWB goal setting, participation, compliance runs from ESD. They're sort of designated as the agency to do that. And so they track MWB procurements across all of state government. We have to report to them. So it's like going to the source, Alex.
Right.
So, but if they're here, I mean, I know we'll have questions for them. And since they said, they are the operational arm of this effort in Article 15A. So that could be great. And I wanted to be clear on that. And then also we spent some time talking, and it's in the minutes, and again, very well recorded, about the mission statements, right? And to the degree to which the mission statements could better reflect goals of housing policy that was responsive to the Fair Housing Act and was responsive to history, a long and horrible history of discrimination in housing in this state. And again, not to figure that out now, but what's the process at the staff level for working on the mission statement? Diane, I think you were going to do some work on that, but just if there can be a quick update on that.
So we started working on that, and then we thought, because if you remember at the January meeting, there were also questions about the MBBA.
Yeah.
A mission statement from Andy and James and Linda Baldwin. So we thought that if we came at this meeting, we'd have to do this again at the April meeting because the MBBA is not meeting.
Right.
So we put it off for the April meeting so we can address all of the comments, not just to HFA, SONYMA, but also to MBBA.
Great. Okay, good. Again, just this wasn't long ago that we met, and these issues are really important, and I just want to stay on top of it. Great. Well, with that, Ruth Ann, what's going on?
Great. Well, good morning, everyone. I will just give a quick update on what's been going on. At the last board meeting, I was just about to, or just a couple weeks away from testifying, which happened last week. I think it was maybe about 2.5 hours of testimony, focusing largely on the housing compact, but also on a lot of other issues raised by the legislature, including our work on Mitchell-Lama, our work on fair housing testing, concerns with vacant apartments and registrations, which is sort of a big topic that's been on the news relating to our Office of Rent Administration, conversations about minority home ownership rates. All, I think, great questions and sort of reflective of the breadth and the depth of the work that we do here at the agencies. So that happened, I think, without much fanfare. We are still neck deep in the governor's housing compact and going around the state and having, I think, between my team and I, we probably have 3 to 5 meetings a day for the last, it's been maybe 8 weeks now, 9 weeks, talking to stakeholders, talking to, yesterday we were out at the East End Mayors Association out in Suffolk County. We spent an hour and a half last night, Kathleen and I did, with Community Board 13 in Queens. Earlier in the day, we were talking to electeds from Long Beach. So we certainly could not be accused of not doing our fair share of outreach since the plan has been announced to both explain what it is and get input, because as you all know, we are headed into sort of the negotiating time in another week or two from now. Per Jesse, I think we will start in earnest in a more extensive negotiation on the housing compact. But it's been great. I think it's been helpful to dispel some of the myths that people are concerned about, explain something that is quite complicated that not everyone really understands the nuance of, because who reads, budget language if you're just sort of a general citizen, and also being able to get real feedback about what people think works and might work. So that will continue for the next couple of weeks, but it's certainly been a great experience, and it has allowed us to also do a couple of great events with the governor. And I think it was last week we did an event in Albany and an event in Rochester. So lots to do there and lots more to come. And obviously when we get to, assuming the budget passes on time, knock on wood, in April, we'll be able to talk a little bit about how we came out of the budget process with the Housing Compact. We do have other things in the budget besides the Housing Compact, but so we'll update on how those go as well. We have a couple items on this month's agenda that certainly complement all of the work that we do in terms of our community work. We're going to hear from Samantha Pierce today on several projects that are getting funding through the Clean Energy Initiative. As you all recall, we work quite closely with NYSERDA on the Clean Energy Initiative to get funding into our projects to make them all electric. We also have an approval under our Legacy Cities Access Program, which you all remember is the program where we're working with land banks to renovate distressed homes. The event that was in Albany last week was partially celebrating some of that work. We also have some CDBG Economic Development Awards. We'll talk a little bit about expansion in our neighborhood and rural preservation programs, which is exciting. We will have bond funding for a series of projects. And lastly, we'll have some awards through our mobile home replacement program, which we actually haven't had that come to the board, I think, in a little bit of time. So excited to see those. So all important tools in our toolkit as we try to reach as many New Yorkers as we can. So with that, I will turn it back to you, Ken.
Thanks, Ruth Ann. Any questions for Ruth Ann on her report? I think when we meet again in April, assuming the budget's passed, there'll be more.
Yeah, I might even do like a little PowerPoint if we can figure it out in April, just to go through some of the highlights from the budget and just to sort of see some numbers and stuff. There's a lot of stuff in there, so
that would be great.
We'll do that. Okay.
I did have one question.
Yeah.
Because I've been in a lot of conversations about the compact also, and one of the things that I hear often is 800,000 units is great, but none of it is there's no requirement for any of it to actually be affordable.
Right.
And it is on top of all the great work that you're already doing, subsidized affordable.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess, my response is typically, well, we need capital to further subsidize those units if we're going to regulate them as affordable. That's one of the challenges. And some of the zoning considerations could be very helpful in providing some more natural affordability. But beyond that, how do you address that question? I'm sure you've gotten it.
Yeah, so one way is that we explain that the 800,000 is that we've done 400,000 units over the last 10 years. So we would assume that same 400,000 units happens over the next 10 years. And that is all the affordable work we do. It's all the affordable work the city does. It's all the affordable work that localities do with their home funds. And that we all don't have additional resources to really do any more than we do now. We sort of are at max capacity. So, but we acknowledge that we need another 400,000 units given the job growth, given general state growth. And so we need that housing to be built more as mixed income housing that is driven more by tax incentives, by zoning incentives, and we need it everywhere. So that is sort of how we talk about it. Second to that, we say we have built into the plan that for localities that have growth targets, which is all localities 3% downstate and 1% upstate, if there's a town that has 10,000 housing units and they would have a 100-unit goal, they can either build 100 market rate units over the 3 years, or they could build 50 affordable regulated units, and that would count as their goal. So we've put in this 2-for-1 counting, which we think is a good incentive, and that a lot of localities will utilize that. So we've sort of built into the framework an incentive, we think a pretty heavy one, towards affordability. And those are kind of the two ways we talk about it.
It's very helpful. Thank you.
Great, thanks. Well, Diana, let's get to work.
Now we move to the HFA SONYMA AHC agenda. And I think the first item we have is a resolution appointing a senior vice president and chief of staff.
Oh, great. We're going to do Kathleen. Mm-hmm. I am delighted to recommend for consideration the appointment of Kathleen McAdam-Benjamin as our senior vice president and chief of staff. Kat joined you're speaking behind me? Okay. Don't blush. Kat joined the agency in 2018 from Keith Wright's office as our director of intergov affairs, and we were very fortunate to have her. She was sort of a powerhouse in that role. She brings great relationships, a wonderful disposition, and an extreme sense of follow-up, which is so necessary in that role. We then elevated her to Deputy Chief of Staff from that role, where she was for a couple years. And then she has basically been acting as the Chief of Staff for quite a while without the title. She plays so many roles. She makes sure that the agency really runs smoothly, works both sort of on an internal staff basis. I think people really rely on her as a go-to when they have issues or concerns, and maybe sometimes good things to say, and can competently sort of talk to her about that. And she also works among the senior team to keep us all working and on point and make sure we're all on agenda. And then she works externally for me, and really, as we have done so many briefing compacts, and not only have I done them, but Kathleen does them as well, and does a wonderful job in them, and makes sure that we are sort of getting the agency's message out in the right tone and the right voice and the right message. So and Kat really can do anything from my perspective. She also oversees our intergovernmental team, our Office of Economic Opportunity, which we may rename. And so in addition to sort of her Chief of Staff duty, also has a good sized staff that she oversees as well. So I am confident that Ms. Benjamin will make a significant contribution. I recommend her appointment without reservation.
Do you want to say something, Kat? Thank you. I'm honored and super excited to be a part of this dynamic, all-female executive team. We get along so well. It's the best environment to work in. It's a great family-friendly, but also they give so much. They've taught me a lot, and I look forward to learning even more, and I'll do my best. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You know, with doing this enhanced role, Kat, and making it official, it will, and if you're here, for example, in New York, it really frees Ruth Ann up to do much more travel all across the country.
Oh, yeah.
Be out of the office.
Buffalo in December.
You're here running the show. She can go anywhere the governor needs her to go, which is just fantastic for Ruth Ann and her family.
I was going to go to Florida with Capel. I thought that's what supposed to be
good luck
doing,
with
just
that.
like, you know,
Good
go on
luck with
vacation.
And if there aren't any questions or concerns, or any questions for Kat? No, great.
Awesome.
Would you make it real?
Yes. Now before all the agencies is a resolution that was transmitted in connection with this item. Assuming the first and second previously entered for HFA, SONYMA, and AHC and HTFC, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The motion is carried. Congratulations.
Awesome. Thank you, Kat.
Now Ruth Ann's going to take off.
Yeah. She can just
See
take
you, Ruth Ann.
my spot here.
Off to Florida. Next, we're going to move to items requiring Mortgage Insurance Committee action and SONYMA Board action, those two together. Number 3, resolutions of the Mortgage Insurance Committee and of the SONYMA Board recommending and approving 25% mortgage insurance on a $60,900,000 HDC permanent first mortgage loan for Riverwalk 8, which is on Main Street on Roosevelt Island, right behind us over here in beautiful New York City. Mike, good morning, Mike.
Good morning. So this is somewhat anomalous because SONYMA will only insure 25% of this loan, and we usually insure 100% of a mortgage loan. In this case, HDC asked us to risk share with REMIC, which is a residential mortgage insurance corp. It's a wholly owned subsidiary of HDC. And I'll go into the details of risk sharing in a moment. This project comprises the development of 341 affordable units, including 69 low-income units. It's a very heavily subsidized project. There's $20 million HPD second mortgage, a $12.5 million housing HCR third mortgage, $3 million Citibank DOJ settlement funds, $22.8 million from the sale of inclusionary air rights to another developer, and $8.4 million in low-income housing tax credits. And the land is subject to a de facto 48-year ground sublease, and the land is actually owned by the city of New York, so it's tax-free. HDC, REMIC, and SONYMA will enter into an intercreditor agreement. REMIC will have sole responsibility for the billing and collection of annual mortgage insurance premiums and the remittance to SONYMA of 50% of those premiums. And REMIC will also have responsibility for oversight of HDC's workout of any loan defaults. Since its inception, the MIF has not paid a claim for a default on any HTC mortgage loan. The insured loan amount is $44,650 per unit. The project would break even with a pro forma 12% vacancy and collection loss, or a 16% increase in operating expenses.
Mike, thank you. Anybody have questions for Mike on the project? Yes, Joyce.
Yeah, why is Remick requesting that we share the top 25%?
I think that HTC has actively sought risk sharing. They have risk sharing with Freddie Mac, with FHA, and I think HTC just wanted another example of risk sharing. So they reached out to us and asked us to risk share. And we want to do a lot more business with HTC. We thought this would facilitate it.
Do we get a difference in in what we're charging for this?
We've always charged a 0.5% of the mortgage loan.
Right.
So no.
And that's the same as Remick?
Actually, I don't know what their premium is.
Mike, thanks, Joyce. I'm sorry, I just don't, maybe I don't remember it well, but can you walk us a little bit through the inclusionary zoning air rights sale? You know, how that works, who buys them? You know, there's a lot of money in the project, and it's a particular New York thing.
It's just another developer buys essentially density.
Right.
You know, air rights, essentially being the air above a project. And this way, the second developer who purchases the air rights can build a taller.
Anywhere.
I think so. I don't think it has to be adjacent to the project or on Roosevelt Island.
But because this project it's 100% affordable, right? With 20% low income?
Well, it depends on
the number of units is precise. The low income units are precisely 20% of all units. So I saw the developers and I saw that and I thought, oh, it's an 80-20 deal.
No,
but it's not.
It's not.
It's not.
So eligibility ranges from 40% to 165% of AMI.
Right.
Affordability is from 40% to only 135% of AMI.
So there's a few units that are market, basically.
Yes.
Well, I think really the 80, the 130 ones, the rents, I guess, are 80, 100, 135 are kind of great, right? Because like normally it's low income and then market. So this provides like a nice range in between. Right. They work a lot with, they have a lot of MSK, I think, North Slope Kettering and other nursing sort of staff, I think, that live, my understanding from my Roosevelt Island experience, that live there and commute in. So it really gives that sort of like hospital worker who's not low income, but also can't afford market rate kind of range.
So it's better than an 80-20.
For sure.
Okay.
Where there's no income restriction or rent restriction.
And most of the property on Roosevelt Island is, as they say, historically owned by the city, but it was turned over to the state through REAC. So REAC is
so this is a
state entity.
Lease to REAC and a sublease from REAC to the developer.
Yeah, REAC is a city lease. It's leased from the ground lease is to the city. City to REAC and REAC to the developers.
Okay.
And the developers are the related companies and the Hudson companies.
Right.
Both experienced.
Yeah, you would have to be to figure this out. Joyce.
You have to be experienced in order to create a structure like this. My question is about the ground lease. The ground lease that Roosevelt Island has, REAC has, is 99 years.
Right.
Why is the sublease only 50 years?
Well, there's actually only 48 years left on the primary.
And there's only 25 years of a tax abatement.
Really?
Right?
Well, I'm glad we don't have the mortgage and only the insurance.
What's that? I think over time, the expectation would be that like the REAC would re-up their ground lease with the city, but right now there's only the 48 years.
Right. All right. Any other complications we want Mike to unravel?
The SONYMA statute requires that the ground lease be at least 20% longer than the mortgage. And here the mortgage is 40 and what remains of the ground lease is 48 years. So it's exactly.
Okay. Great.
You better close it quick before we get.
What's the average cost of the apartments, and is this impacted by the insurance increases that we talked about the month before?
You mean the rents for the apartments? I think there's a rent schedule in here on page 3. You can see studios 1s, 2s, 3s. You can see the 40, 50, 80. So that looks like they are at the lowest 662 and at the highest 3-bedroom at the highest income is 3,400.
The projected operating expenses are about 10,000 per annum per unit, which is actually pretty high, but that includes $1,700 in ground rent. And the projected insurance expense is only $600 per unit, which is actually pretty low.
Probably because Related is so large, I suspect they get different rates than some of our other borrowers.
Okay.
I don't know, but.
Let's if there are no further questions, yes, Diana.
Oh, they have a full 35-year tax abatement.
It's 35 years?
So this says full 35-year. I missed that before.
Okay, good.
Okay, now
It's good
before
to see
Sunny
you
Mae Mortgage
partnering with
Insurance
HTC.
Committee and the Sunny Mae Board are resolutions that were transmitted in connection with this item. Assuming the first and second previously entered for the Mortgage Insurance Committee and for Sunny Mae, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The motions are carried and the resolutions adopted.
Thank you. Now we're going to move to the item requiring Mortgage Insurance Committee, HFA Finance and Program Committee, and HFA members' action. So this is a different set of things we've got to do. And it's item number 4 in the materials, 2 parts A and B. A is a resolution of the Sunny Mae Mortgage Insurance Committee approving 100%. Let's go back to that. We usually do this, Mike. 100% mortgage insurance, not 25. On a $4,050,000 HFA permanent first mortgage loan for the Utica Renaissance Project in, oddly enough, Utica, New York, and Oneida County. B, resolutions of the HFA Finance and Program Committee and the HFA members recommending and authorizing an amount not to exceed $55,265,000 of fixed and/or variable rate tax-exempt and/or taxable bonds, and an amount not to exceed $36,921,525 in HFA subsidy funds. It's a lot of subsidy funds, Ruth Ann. For the Utica Renaissance Project in Utica. So Mike is here to present this again, and he's got the whole team.
So this project comprises the rehab of 167 units. The units are owned by the Housing Authority. And the project will provide 24 supportive units with ESHI rent subsidies and 143 low-income units with Section 8 rent subsidies. It's a highly subsidized project. There's a 30-year pilot with the Utica IDA. The insured loan amount is only $24,000 per unit, which equals 4% of the project's total development cost of $605,000 per unit. And the project would break even with an 11% pro forma vacancy loss or a 9% pro forma increase in operating expenses.
Thank you, Mike. Who's going to present the rest of it?
I shall.
Oh, okay.
Hi, Russell.
Russell.
Hi.
Good morning.
Morning. So Utica Renaissance is the name of the project. In fact, I just heard today that they're changing the name to Impact Utica. So we'll have to change our documentation. Impact Utica is actually the name also of the developer, which is the Utica Municipal Housing Authority. I think they're rebranding themselves to kind of demonstrate how they're trying to be impactful in the city of Utica as a developer, not only just as a provider of public housing. So that's reflected in this, in the name of the project. And the project is sort of a microcosm for what's going on in Utica in terms of the city's attempts at revitalization, especially of the downtown area. So there's 2 components to this project. One is the substantial rehab of and modernization of existing state public housing. That's called Chancellor Apartments. It was built in the late 70s. Under the stewardship of the Utica Municipal Housing Authority, 93 units of public housing designed for seniors and persons with disabilities. Incomes are typically below 60% AMI. As Mike said, all units are covered under a project-based Section 8 contract that provides rental subsidy. It's a 6-story building. After years of wear and tear, is in need of substantial renovation. This includes upgrades of the building's major systems, plumbing, heating, cooling, electrical, as well as concrete and infrastructure replacement, repair, plaster and ceilings, roof replacement, door and flooring replacement, and of course upgrades to all the residential units. Chancellor will fully upgrade to fully electric air source heat pumps for its domestic hot water. The upgrades in total will result in more than 20% energy use reduction in electricity and water, which exceeds our agency's requirements for rehabilitation of existing properties. The project also has an existing grant award from our HTFC colleagues through the Public Housing Modernization Fund program, which helps to supplement the proposed HFA financing. And then the second component of this project is located about 0.4 miles from Chancellor. It's currently a vacant warehouse on 700 Broad Street, formerly known as the Avalon Knitting Mill. It was originally built in 1903 to house the Avalon Knitting Company. The city of Utica recently rezoned the neighborhood here in order to allow for the development of residential housing, which has traditionally been a commercial area. The property is right on the edge of a residential neighborhood to the south, but it's sort of on the frontier of this rezoned area for affordable housing purposes. Our environmental assessment unit conducted a lengthy and ultimately successful site suitability review in cooperation with the city of Utica. I would just note it's often that government serves as a pioneer for affordable housing development in these types of areas. There's certainly a lot of buzz, we're talking about with the development and cooperation of local municipalities and the creation of affordable housing. So this is a good example of what's going on. I think Utica has been a very good forerunner of this idea that I think we're seeing more and more of course, with the governor's housing compact. When finished, this building will house 74 units. 24 will be supportive for families and youth transitioning out of homelessness. They'll be supplemented by an ESHI award for rent subsidy and operational subsidy through the Office of Temporary and Disability Assistance. That'll be administered by the Mohawk Valley Community Action Agency. The other 50 units in the building will be designated for low-income seniors. Also, Utica is providing home funds to supplement the state's financing. Finally, the building was added to the state and national registers of historic places, which thereby renders it eligible for additional tax credits through the historic rehabilitation, and that totals another 10% of the project's financing. So as an adaptive reuse project, 700 Broad Street will meet all of the agency's energy efficiency requirements for new construction. It'll be fully electric. Broad Street is also utilizing energy efficiency measures such as all-electric HVAC systems, increased insulation, energy recovery ventilation system, or ERV. So in total, this development will continue to be owned and administered by the Housing Authority, which we are very pleased with. The Public Housing Authority has, I said, renamed itself Impact Utica to demonstrate its heightened role in development and preservation of affordable housing in the Utica area. They're partnering with the Vecino Group, who is going to serve as the turnkey developer. Vecino's done a lot of work with us in the past as a developer and a borrower. They're very experienced in this type of development, especially with the supportive housing component. So the financing of this project will result in creation and preservation of 167 units of affordable, supportive, senior, and energy-efficient housing that will remain so for decades to come.
Also, thank questions on this project in Utica. I have two. Just one at a high level. It's why the two buildings, right? Like, in other words, it's interesting that a developer says, here's what I want to do. And I'm doing a package deal. I'm going to do a rehab of this building from the 70s and then renovate a factory, 8 blocks away or whatever it is. As opposed to, how does that happen? Why does it happen? I have a guess, but it's just curious.
A lot of it's just coincidence, timing. The adaptive reuse is definitely the priority. That's right. Really what they wanted to push. The city was very really aggressive on trying to get this thing going with the rezoning. They've got other projects that they want to rehab in addition to Chancellor, and the original proposal had, I think, 2 other buildings with it. It just turned out to be financially infeasible to do them all at once. So you're probably going to see staggered requests for rehab on some of these other buildings. Chancellor was just one that seemed to be ready to move along with this.
And then there's probably some efficiencies, and if they're doing the work on both buildings at the same time.
Right.
So there's some cost savings because you got your crews and you do, here comes my electric and here comes my sheetrock.
Right. Exactly. And also the thing with the Chancellor project, which is sort of unique, and this is my first experience with a state public housing. Typically we do public housing HUD transformations where there's a RAD conversion, Section 18, Section 8 PBVs, but this is a state public housing transfer, which required our colleagues at DHCR to approve the ownership transfer. And that was a whole other process that worked out successfully, but it was quite a a meandering AG, the state controller has to approve it. So just another thing that we learned.
The other, again, just sort of big picture question. Utica is the recipient of a DRI, big DRI grant, right? The Downtown Revitalization Initiative. How does that kind of major investment by the state in the downtown revitalization of Utica support a project like this, if it does?
In this case, well, we did a project last year that had DRI funds in it, Obelston Apartments, which is not too far from this area, which I think got a direct influx of about $3 million in DRI. But the DRI funds kind of complement the overall broader rezoning initiative. So even though this project's not getting DRI, they're getting home funds. So there is like sort of...
Presumably the area around it is benefiting, right? Great. Great, thanks, Russell. Any other questions or comments? Yeah, Joyce.
Yeah, I had a question about the proposed tenant mix. It just seems a little bit odd. Because you have a combination of at-risk youth, senior citizens, and formerly homeless families. And
yeah, it's a question that we asked too. It seemed odd. Vecino has done projects like this in the past, and they find that it actually complements itself, having the senior component mixed in with the youth component, and there's services provided to both, through various agencies. Yeah, they think it's a good combination.
Okay. And is it walkable to most things?
Yes. It's just, I think, southeast of downtown Utica, and there's bus lines. It's 700 Broad Street's along a main corridor, which allows for public transportation. But I think the area is, like I said, it's sort of a pioneering building, so I think there's more to come.
A lot going on in Utica. It's great to see more happening.
Really. Let's do it, Diana.
Okay. Now before Sunny May Mortgage Insurance Committee is a resolution that was transmitted in connection with this item. Assuming the first and second previously entered from the Mortgage Insurance Committee, all in favor, please say aye.
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 The motion is carried and the resolution adopted. Now before the HFA members and the HFA Finance and Program Committee, a resolution adopted that was transmitted in connection with this item. Assuming the first and second previously entered for HFA and for the Finance Committee, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The motions are carried and the resolution adopted.
Terrific. Now we're going to move to the item requiring Mortgage Insurance Committee, Sunny May Board action, HFA Finance and Program Committee, and HFA members action. So everybody's got to help with this one. It's number 5, 2 parts, A and B, and we're going to go up to Monroe County. A are resolutions of the Sunny May Mortgage Insurance Committee and Sunny May Board recommending and approving 100% mortgage insurance on a $22,800,000 HFA permanent first mortgage loan for the Pines of Perrington in Perrington, Monroe County. It's southeast of Rochester, right? It's resolutions of HFA Finance and Program Committee and the HFA members recommending and authorizing an amount not to exceed $76,215,000 of fixed and or variable rate, tax exempt or taxable bonds, and an amount not to exceed $34,847,298. Another big HFA subsidy loan within for the Pines of Perrington project in Fairport, Monroe County. Mike, you want to start this off?
Sure. So this project comprises the rehab of 508 all low-income units. There's a project-based Section 8 HAB contract covering 117 of the 508 units. There's a 40-year pilot agreement with the town of Perrington. The insured loan amount is $45,000 per unit, which equals 17% of the project's total development cost of $268,000 per unit. The project is being developed by Wind Development Corp., and this is the third loan that Sunny May will insure for entities controlled by Wind, with total exposure of only $43 million.
The commissioner was whispering to me.
I was asking if Ken was familiar with this one because it's an old UD. This is an old UDC.
Because it was we call it one of the 53.
One of your children, one of your old children.
One of the 53.
And was also like a significant, well, I'm sure these guys will talk about it. Sort of has a significant architecture. Maybe not for this time.
We're all interested in the significant architecture. The truth is, I don't remember it, but Ruth Ann was checking on that.
It's cool. You can Google it.
We had the old, people remember the portfolio at the time, 53 properties at ESD that were transferred here under Commissioner Towns and CEO Towns. So anyway, let's see if people have questions for Mike. Mike, you're done presenting your part, right, for mortgage insurance? I guess Russell will tell us more about it, the whole project.
Yeah, this is designed under the Mitchell-Lama program, and it, like as Ruth Ann had mentioned, it was part of an original group of mortgages that the agency had bought up about 7-8 years ago for refinancing.
10 years ago.
Yeah.
10 years, is it 10 years ago?
2013.
Yeah, Diana was there.
Yeah, I started out as a project manager for that purpose, hired to work on these deals. My nickname was Mitch after a while. I'm not sure I really liked that. Here I am again. The Pines of Perrington, it sounds like something out of Lord of the Rings or a soap opera, but it's a massive 508-unit development. It sits on 42 acres of land in the town of Perrington, which is a population of about 46,000, within the smaller village of Fairport. It's about 9 miles southeast of Rochester in Monroe County. It was originally built in 1972. Like I said, under the Mitchell-Lama program, also with HUD Section 236. The project was built to address the need for affordable family housing in an underserved area. Indeed, the Pines is one of the very few affordable rental housing opportunities in Perrington. It represents almost 40% of the affordable housing units in the area. The project is currently home to over 1,100 residents, 445 of which are children. The school district is well recognized in the area as a highly ranked statewide school district. It's ranked 17th out of 431 school districts, according to the Business First Upstate New York district rankings. Despite having access to excellent public schools, the nearly 46,000 residents in Perrington have very limited access to rental housing. With almost 20,000 of the total housing units there, only 3,800 are for renters. This project appears as one long, snaking two-story building. There's a picture in the board materials, but if you Google it too, it's quite an interesting, strange-looking development. It's actually 5 separate buildings, but they're sort of intertwined in a serpentine kind of layout. They were designed by the famous modern architect Charles Gwathmey. Gwathmey is well known, most famously for the 1992 renovation of the Guggenheim.
Oh. Wow.
Yeah, I thought actually that was George Costanza, but
He doesn't Guggenheim.
yeah.
That's a quote from George.
Everybody get the Seinfeld joke, but
I got it.
Architect
That was Art Vandelay.
Age 12.
And a fire, so
But anyway, back on December 12, 2022, Governor Hochul's office announced that the Pines of Perrington had been recommended for state and national register of historic places. This is not only significant from a historical perspective, but by qualifying as a historic landmark, the project is now eligible for over $19 million in historic tax credit equity. That's in addition to the over $46 million in equity provided through the federal and state low-income housing tax credits. So all in all, it's a big project. It's massive, but it represents, half the sources coming to the project are tax credit equity. So it's actually quite highly efficient from a financing perspective. So the scope of work at Pines is going to be substantial. It was going to be to begin with, but it was expanded, unfortunately, when in January of last year, part of the complex underwent a major fire, displacing 65 residents across 19 units. Nobody was hurt, but the 19 units have to be completely demolished and rebuilt. This does, however, offer an opportunity to increase energy efficiency measures, particularly with those 19 units. Those 19 units will be rebuilt to Zero Energy Ready Home certification under the Energy Star multifamily new construction path. So that's sort of a nice sort of ending to a bad story. The remaining 489 units will be renovated to meet the agency's substantial rehab requirements, at least a 20% reduction in electrical and water usage. The project would have likely qualified in part for our Clean Energy Incentive Program. However, it's unfortunately not located in a qualifying area for that program, but it is getting some incentive awards from NYSERDA and the local Fairport Electric Commission. So there'll be a new regulatory agreement on Pines that will remain 100% affordable for incomes at or below 80% of AMI for the next 40 years. The residents generally income ranges from 40 to 80% AMI. As Mike had mentioned, 117 of the units have a Section 8 project-based rental assistance. A real estate tax abatement through a pilot is already in place. It was negotiated in 2019 when the current owner and developer, Wynn, acquired the property. Wynn has demonstrated experience working with the agency, particularly Western New York, Mitchell-Lama's, other preservation deals. They closed the Whitney Scattered Sites project in downtown Buffalo with us last year. and they successfully rehabilitated other ESD Michelamas, the Cedars of Chilai and Indian Trails, back in 2015 and 2016. So they've been doing this before. And that's it.
Questions? We won't get into a debate over the architectural significance of this place, which is a debatable matter, I think, but we won't go into that.
I'll do it.
I suppose so. Julie, anything you want to add because you're here?
Russell's got it covered. I'm here for the next
Oh,
project.
okay. So we'll save you for the next one.
One question is, does the guess it brings in additional tax credit equity, but does the historic designation complicate and make the project more expensive than the 19 million? I mean, is there like problems like with doing public, like some of the affordable housing, whether it's NYCHA and other brick work there, whether, and also what I was talking to someone that said that, in fact, there's historic trauma in a lot of the buildings for a lot of folks that are living in it. And in fact, like keeping it the same keeps the embedded trauma of the housing that they've lived in, even though the interiors are much nicer and redone, but visibly what they've seen on the exteriors is also, I don't know.
It's a good question, and there's definitely a give and take, and the process to get this approved through the National Park Service is a very long and winding process. In fact, the reason this is coming today is because it wasn't ready last month because of that review. So the Park Service will come up with recommendations for preservation, which may impact the ability of the project to redevelop. Like they wanted to put solar panels on the roof, they're not allowed. But there's land available to do that somewhere else, so they're trying to find solutions. But yeah, it does pose problems. There's a cost and benefit, right? You're getting a lot of equity, but at the same time, you have to preserve the window, right?
Yeah.
Really outstanding.
It is interesting, the lack of alignment between the State Historic Preservation Office and the CLCPA that's calling for a transition to all renewable, and you can't put solar on the roof. I find that challenging. But that's one piece of a bigger story about a lack of alignment as we transition around utilities and just in general, it's going to take a lot.
You've brought this up before, and I just would use this project as an example. There's also just a lack of alignment with environmental and sort of climate change concerns. This is the most inefficient way. If you think about the climate, part of the Monroe County, and the layout of this building on almost 500,000 square feet of land, it was done when number 2 fuel oil was free, and you could have oil heat, and you could have, I'm sure they have oil, whether it's hot water, whatever their system is, because it didn't matter. So what we're going to do is put $136 million into rehabilitating this, and you can't put a solar panel on the roof. So there's a total, we're basically perpetuating for another X number of decades something that's an environmental disaster in the name of affordable housing. But let's do it, people.
What's your proposed alternative?
We support the locality. This is what local officials want, and we're going to support it, but it's just an observation, which doesn't need to be so accurately reflected in the minutes. That's okay. That it is sometimes frustrating to see. But it's just the lack of, when there is a gap, right, between these different objectives. Over here, historic preservation. Over here, save the planet. Over here, provide affordable housing. And when we're going down, and we're financing it fine, that's our job. We're not at that higher level trying to get that coordination. But it does seem a little incongruous to one observer.
It's literally impossible probably to do heat pumps with the historic designation, is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, sit outside like a Mitsubishi.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Is that
the beautiful carport, so beautiful. You can't destroy that with a heat pump.
It is.
Those go outside, man.
I mean, there's air conditioning units through the wall, and that's okay.
Given the amounts of snow they probably get, they need a carport.
They have a lot of
Might be less snow going forward.
There you go.
Right.
Well,
anyway,
I vented.
Well, you do raise an interesting point, which is at what point do we take a stand on these things? We're hearing a real disconnect here. I know our mission is to finance housing, but if it's not making any sense from a long-term standpoint, environmental standpoint, climate standpoint, do we just rubber stamp it anyway?
Well, I think in this place, this is fully baked and it's been,
Well, then, okay, well,
So, but you raise a broader point moving forward, right? And I think.
well, pardon me, but I wasn't moving forward just yet.
Yeah.
Because I think if we just continue to rubber stamp these kinds of things, there's never going to be any incentive on the other end to ever do things any differently.
Right.
Well, look, this is a fully occupied building, right? So if they came to us to get this building renovated and we don't renovate it, it's just going to stay there with all those people living in it in terrible conditions and or get worse, right? It's not like the alternative is they're going to build a new building over here and move everybody. That's not what this is. So that's a challenge, right? It's different if it's a new construction building where we could choose to finance or not. It's harder for sure when there's people living in the buildings.
But is there a way for the State Housing Agency to convene with the State Historic Preservation Office and have the conversation around the alignment issue? And not even...
Meaning ask them if we could do panels and do other...
Here's a case study of something that goes against the grain of other government priorities that we as an agency have done so much to try and support. And here's one that we just can't get there. Do you think about that at SHPO?
Right.
And if not, why not? I think even just to start the conversation around the lack of alignment is very important, because I'm sure that if you ask the people at SHPO if they care about the climate, they'll say yes, right? Maybe they care more about historic preservation, which I understand in a beautiful building in New York City, but here is an interesting, case study, I'll say, so.
And thinking about Wallace's observation, and because it's true, we often do feel like a rubber stamp, and that's how public authorities to some degree work that way. But I think what's really what to think about is, Ruth Ann, at the staff level, flagging this alignment much earlier, as early as possible in the process, because we're sort of a reactive place, right? Wallace, in other words, developers approach a team and say, I'm thinking of doing this project outside of Rochester, in a town called Parenton, and here's what I've got so far, and here's the help I'm going to need from the agency. And early on, at this long development pipeline project, the project development pipeline. Early on, how do you have our staff on the front line saying, well, hold on a second. Before, we get used, developers will jam us, right? They'll get local commitments. They'll start putting financing. They'll go to the bank. But how do we, right, from a policy standpoint, flag things early on and say, wait, stop, time out. Let's have some conversations with our sister state agencies and try to sort of get a better alignment. What I'm saying is kind of going upstream here, because you're right. By the time it comes to us, what are we going to do? Put these people on the street? No.
But nobody's talking about putting people on the street.
I know.
But on the other hand, to be silent, it just doesn't seem to, from a policy standpoint, if we just say, well, okay, there's nothing we can do about it, nothing will be done. And I don't think that's a useful public policy approach. At the very least, if we're going to approve it with that commentary, at the very least. And I think the point that you're making is that going forward, we have to find a way to collaborate, coordinate something with other folks. I've got a son who's 26. I'd like for him to, by the time he gets to his dad's age, be on a planet that actually is working. I'd hate to think that I'm being complicit in just the opposite of that. I'm not suggesting anybody wants to be complicit in it, but doing nothing, I don't see that as an option. At least, I think, the very least, if we're going to, I would vote yes with conditions, or just vote no, just to make the point that it was not unanimous because of these situations.
Fair enough. Right.
But I don't think we can just wait until the next one comes, and the next one comes, and perhaps there's a statement of policy from this agency going forward to the various partners and players that we deal with, that we're going to be looking at this through a different lens.
And I'm happy to participate in a conversation as a board member of both HFA and NYSERDA to sit at the table, because it is frustrating when the entities all have New York State in their name, and then they don't have the aligned priorities. So I'm happy to support that dialogue. I think it would be I think it's time.
I agree.
What's the practical takeaway, Ruth Ann?
Well, I would have sort of between Thevia and Becky sort of on the development side, and Becky running our energy efficiency, sort of have them reach out to the right folks at SHPO and just sort of start to engage in a conversation about the conflict between our CLCPA goals and some of the SHPO restrictions.
NYSERDA table too.
Could a standard be put in as far as a requirement before you bring it to this point? You have to have met these points Otherwise, we're not going to be looking to approve these projects.
Well, our standard right now is for rehabilitation. They drop their energy costs by 20% in order. So they are doing that here.
They are doing a lot. Let's it's not like we're doing nothing here. There's a lot of investment. There's a lot of energy efficiency. Maybe it's not as robust as we'd like, but there's a lot going on.
And Wynn is very good at that. They're very focused on it as a developer. They really care about that. I think, they're trying to also get as many resources as possible to support what is a very difficult and expensive renovation and very important, critically affordable housing in this community. So it is hard, and I appreciate very much that they are doing a lot, but that doesn't take us away from we really need to talk to SHPO. So, I hear you completely on the greatest good here is preserving the affordability. But we need to build on this case study as a really glaring example.
It also may be based on just the photos of the wall units of air conditioning and other things too. Like an overall more efficient building may actually benefit the tenants in terms of like energy burden and other things as well. And like if you were to do like a big district-wide geothermal, you could probably, with this size amount of land and this amount of property, you could probably dramatically overhaul the overall energy expenditure at the property as well.
Yeah, so we'll take that as a to-do, certainly on the staff level, and we can.
Great.
Okay.
Another question.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
James.
This is being done in the historic section of the downtown area, right?
The site, the building itself has been designated as a historic
I
landmark.
think it's the building, not
Yeah.
the building. It's not downtown Rochester. This is a small suburban town.
Is the revitalization addressing the lowest income percentage of individuals living in the area?
Yeah, as this represents, I think I mentioned 40% of the total rental availability in the area. It's definitely the lowest of the low for this area.
So this is going to impact the 4.7% of the lowest income individuals living in that area.
Yeah, you have 99 units at 40% of AMI, right? 11 at 50 and so on.
Numbers supported by Section 8.
Okay. Thanks, James. Diana, let's do it.
Now before Sunny Mae Mortgage Insurance Committee and the Sunny Mae Board are resolutions that were transmitted in connection with this item. Assuming the first and second previously entered for the Mortgage Insurance Committee and the Sunny Mae Board, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motions are carried and the resolutions adopted.
Please note my no vote.
You have a no vote.
That is correct.
Okay, Professor Ford is no.
On the Sunny Mae, right? Yeah, okay.
You got that, Diana, recorded? Good.
Yes. Now before the HFA members and the HFA Finance and Program Committee are resolutions to be adopted that were transmitted in connection with this item. Assuming the first and second previously entered for HFA and for the Finance Committee, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motions are carried and the resolution is adopted.
Thank you, Diana. Thanks, everybody. We're going to move to the item requiring Sunny Mae Mortgage Insurance Committee, Sunny Mae Board, HFA member, HFA Finance and Program Committee, and HTFC action. It's number 6, A, B, and C, 3 parts, and we're going to go back. We're going to go down to Nassau County to Hempstead. A, resolution of the Sunny Mae Mortgage Insurance Committee, Sunny Mae Board.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman. I don't want to hold things up, but what are we understanding with respect to the conversation that we had in terms of some prospective policy
A better coordination between agencies. Ruthann, you want to?
Oh, I mean, we'll have to engage with them and set up some time to meet with them, and I will be able to report back. I wouldn't be able to.
Sorry, say it again, please.
We'll engage with SHPO. I'll ask Thebe and Becky to set up time to meet with them. I think everyone's probably in a crunch in March because of budget, but to get on this and get it. So it will take us a little while to work through this with them. And NYSERDA, yeah, and NYSERDA.
But I was speaking also just in terms of a general statement of policy from Sunny Mae with respect to the issues that we just have been discussing. And somehow, and as you correctly pointed out, I think in the early stages of anybody approaching us, whether it's a community development agency, a developer, whoever, is that we will be looking for some greater environmental consciousness with respect to the development of any project.
Well, we have very strict climate guidelines. We'd be happy to send them to you. We have a whole.
Well, obviously, it wasn't reflected in this project.
Well, no, they did a lot of energy efficiency.
I
They are meeting our.
Yeah.
Okay, we had 1 inch of snow in New York City this winter. Right? There's something going on, you know, and I don't know that we can just say, okay, our standards are good enough. I'm not suggesting they're not good. I'm just suggesting that they could perhaps be more articulated in a more defined fashion, so that when people start doing these things, they are more conscious of these kinds of concerns. I mean, the clock is ticking, colleagues.
So we have like a 30-page document that is our sustainability guidelines that all projects have to adhere to. We could do a little quickie PowerPoint or something and go through that. We do not have. No, there it is.
I would say that it's not totally not reflected. There is quite a lot of energy efficiency improvements happening. Just because there's not solar panels doesn't mean we're not moving towards greater energy efficiency. So, it is always challenging to coordinate what can happen on a historic project, but building envelope often can be disrupted, things like this. But we are still able to achieve more efficient systems, tighter building envelopes, other things that will improve energy efficiency in the building, even though sometimes the exterior things that impact the facade can't be added. For example, like in this project, something like solar panels. So I would just say that it's not a zero-sum game, right? It's not all or nothing. It's just that sometimes some features impacting the facade are just not compatible with historic preservation.
And the 20% on the rehab is actually it's a major account. It's a big number. So I think, in fact, that's like a lot of work to get to the 20%. I mean, your hands are just tied by what you're bound to under the historic. So, but I think.
Sure that if we had solar panels on the roof, it would have made all the difference.
But the 20% is a big. The 20% is a movement, a huge move, a lot of effort. I'm sure they didn't walk in the door at that level, probably.
Yeah, and I think, the other thing I'll say is that's why this is a transition to clean energy and a transition under the CLCPA. This is how we transition. These conversations happen. We reach for more alignment. You can't just flip a switch, no pun intended. Because
no pun taken.
Because it is a very difficult, all of the work that's being done project by project is really hard to get at this. This is something that's never been addressed. And so it's a mid-century goal. And this is the reason that we push, so that we can make this incremental progress as we move towards mid-century. So I really applaud the agency, and I want to put this in the minutes, because they have done more in New York, I think, other than maybe California, but probably not, to transition the work that we do here to reach climate goals, because we have laws on the books in New York and lots of other states don't, but also because we've invested in team and intentionality around looking at our programs and how we take state money and invest it in alignment with state priorities. That's something that SHPO needs to do too. We're not SHPO, but we're going to push SHPO to try and start to do that as well. So
I think that's the higher level conversation I was referring to. It's really on the start impediments.
All right, thank you.
SHPO. But I think to Professor Ford's observation, it would be helpful. I think it would be helpful to get a presentation at a future meeting.
Yeah,
maybe
absolutely.
May of where we are today with when developers approach us, what are those rules, regulations, and requirements around being more responsive to climate change.
Yep.
Just so we are more aware of all that.
Absolutely.
Great. Thanks very much. Where we were going back from Rochester down to Hempstead, and we were at 6A, resolution of SONYMA Mortgage Insurance Committee, SONYMA Board, recommending approving 100% mortgage insurance on a $29,430,000 HFA permanent first mortgage loan for Carmen Place Apartments in Hempstead in Nassau County. And there's a Part B, resolutions of the HFA Finance and Program Committee, HFA members, recommending and authorizing the financing approval of $89,300,000 in maximum fixed rate or very tax-exempt taxable bonds, and amount not to exceed $31,180,000 in HFA subsidy loan funds, and wait, there's more, an amount not to exceed $3,768,427, and not one penny more, in federal housing trust funds for Carmen Place Apartments, again in Hempstead. Part C, finally, resolution of the Housing Trust Fund Corporation, authorizing an amount not to exceed $2 million in the Homes for Community Investment Funds for Carmen Place Apartments in Homestead, again in Hempstead of Nassau County. Mike, we'll start with you and then continue.
So this project comprises the development of 228 low-income units. There is a pilot agreement with the town of Hempstead Industrial Development Agency. The project is being developed by Conifer, a well-regarded and experienced developer of affordable housing. The insured loan amount is $129,000 per unit. And the project would break even with a 7% pro forma vacancy rate, an 18% increase in operating expenses, or 75% of the commercial space vacant.
Thanks, Mike.
Welcome.
Julie?
Okay, good morning, everyone. So I am here to present Carmen Place Apartments. As Mike described, this is 228 units of all affordable housing in 2 5-story buildings. This project is actually exciting for a lot of reasons. It is exciting because it is the second project that will be closing in Hempstead in this quarter. You guys may recall last month we brought you Estella Housing. So Carmen Place, and Estella was supportive housing with community units at or below 60% of AMI. This building is located actually on the same block. It's part of the Hempstead Rising transit-oriented development, downtown development plan that was designed by the village and town of Hempstead over 10 years ago. This project is really a great complement because we're providing in these 228 units a wide range of affordability from 30% of AMI all the way through 90% of AMI. So that means, for example, studios will range from $674 a month to up to $1,800 a month. So there's quite a wide range there. As an example, the 2 bedrooms will range from $850 up to $2,800 a month. So we really feel like these 2 buildings are great complements to one another and also great complements to the market rate development that's been happening in the area. We note that within the past 10 years, there hasn't been a newly constructed affordable housing development in this area. So last month we talked about quite a lot of market rate development happening here in our efforts to try to balance that. And as an update from last month, the board had asked us to do some research into the Estella housing project and the negotiations around the supportive units there. We did contact the development team who tells us they weren't negotiating on veterans necessarily at this location. Interestingly, they're doing a project that involves veterans in Hempstead. In Nassau County. Suffolk County, the other county on Long Island. And in this negotiation, it was primarily around the number of supportive housing units for OMH residents. So I just wanted to respond to that question that came last month. Okay, so back to this project, 228 units in 5 buildings. There will be amenities such as community room, gym, furnished courtyard, laundry facilities for the residents. There's also going to be 254 parking spaces per zoning underground. This project is also notable in that it's been stalled in our pipeline for 7 years while we've been waiting for the developers to be able to successfully negotiate a pilot. So both this project and the Estella project that we showed last month, both were able to achieve their pilot. So we're really very excited to be able to close these together as examples of transit-oriented development and pursuant to the governor's housing compact for this type of development.
So the $1,527 a unit is the pilot?
I'm sorry?
In taxes, the real estate taxes are $1,527 per unit, which seems high to me. But it is Long Island, so I just don't know if that's considered a break in taxes.
It is, because we've waited 7 years
Yeah,
for
yeah.
it. So if that's where they landed, that's where we are.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah, no, that's fine. That's fine. I just didn't have it at the tip of my tongue. I would also add, in addition to the pilot coming through finally, Nassau County is contributing home funds to this project. There's also an Empire State Art Development Regional Economic Development Council grant supporting this project, as well as brownfield tax credits. So we have seen the locality step up with some local support. Additionally, this project is being designed to Energy Star multifamily new construction, the ERI path. The only reason this one's not included in the CEI program is because it's located in a region of the state that doesn't qualify for that program. But they are achieving significant energy efficiency measures, including electric heat pumps for heating and cooling and hot water. And the project will achieve 25% better energy modeling than the Energy Star multifamily new construction program. It will also utilize high performance insulation in windows, all LED lighting, water conserving plumbing fixtures, and Energy Star appliances. So I'll conclude my comments there, and I'm happy to take any questions. Thanks,
Julie. Any questions for Julie on this project? James, what do you think? You're our expert in Nassau County.
What do I think? Well, I got a question. How does this formulate into their TOD? In what way?
Yeah, so both this site and the site presented last month are maybe 3 blocks away from the train station, from the Hempstead Long Island Railroad. So this is part of their transit-oriented development centered around that stop.
The TOD includes economic development. So how does it impact the economic development for the area?
So in this village, they had created their Hempstead Rising Plan, which was their local economic development and downtown revitalization plan. So it seems that they've had their plan in place for a number of years now, and we're operating under their plan, in collaboration with their plan.
But see, that's a part of the problem, just like with the Estella project, is that the reason it sat there for 7, 8 years is because it did not meet their land use plan. That's why it sat for 7 years. So now you have a new mayor who's saying, well, we'll give up all of these concessions in order to do this development. But the housing is there, but the economic portion of it is not there. Because what they had built previously in this exact site, you had Calderon 1, Calderon 2, and a bunch of other developments that were there. The place looked beautiful. It really, really looked nice. They didn't put any economic infrastructure in there. So we're right back here again, reinvesting money on the housing side without doing the community side. Because this is a workforce project. This isn't a community project.
I think one of the other reasons.
Speak to just one item there in terms of the economic development and sort of community context. What I should have mentioned this in my initial comments. One important component of this is that they'll be citing a supermarket in the ground floor to address. This is an area where there's a lack of quality supermarkets, so that is one particular thing that they're adding here to address the sort of context. I'm not sure, you had mentioned that it was workforce versus community. Can you help me understand the difference there?
Workforce is you build a structure and you house the individuals who are going to be working, but they're not necessarily making an income in where they're living. So basically they're sharecropping. So you receive $1 in, there's no way for the dollar to circulate around the community in other areas. You can't go to your local dry cleaner. You can't go to your local shop. You can't go to your other local areas.
Right, they're going to get in their car and drive to.
They're going to have to go out of the
Green Acres
community.
or whatever, right.
And they did build a Stop and Shop and Home Depot and all that stuff there. So they have multiple shopping centers already there as far as food.
Retail, yeah.
But there's no place for the kids to actually work. And for other individuals who are leaving the school, once they graduate, where are they going to work within the community? There's no place for them, except the supermarket or Home Depot. Now, we just put, $38 million into the project in Pioneerton. which has 90% of the individuals that are doing extremely well. This is an area where they're not doing that well. We're putting less money as far as the development portions of it.
So of course we finance the housing. I'm not as familiar with what other types of economic investments are happening, specifically around job growth and creation there. So I'm a little bit at a disadvantage in being able to speak about that. I can speak to the location of this site, to our attempts at helping to balance and create a diversity of affordable housing options alongside the market rate that's happening here. So in that sense, we would consider it part of the transit-oriented initiative, let's say.
Well, my last question would be, how does it impact the school district based on a land use plan and putting 288 units there?
How does it impact the school district?
Yeah.
In terms of number of seats
Tax
in the
base,
local school?
number of
I think they had to
individuals living
study
there.
that when they did area-wide rezoning here, right? But so many years ago. So all those impacts were studied by the locality at that time, and we could pull the EIS up and see, but they would have had to address that in their EIS.
Right.
99% sure they didn't address it.
Well, they would have had to address how they were going to address it at the time.
Yeah. The EIS sits there.
Yeah, the EIS would be the place we would pull any data regarding their plans for schools.
I will say there's still significant real estate tax coming from this project.
Yeah.
Given compared to other affordable projects, and that supports the school district. So they are generating revenue for the district through taxation. I don't know that specifically, but I'm imagining that's one of the reasons the taxes are still so high.
Right. Joyce?
Yeah, I'm concerned about the unit distribution, given that these are supposed to be family apartments. Over half of the units are one-bedroom apartments. And if you're putting a family with children into a one-bedroom apartment, you're asking for trouble in terms of the need for rehab in the near future.
Oh, I don't know that we're putting families into the one bedrooms. There are a significant number of ones and twos in here.
Now, the twos are almost only about a little over a quarter of the units.
Mm-hmm. Typically, the unit distribution, as the developer is working through this, depends quite heavily on the local market study and where they see the demand. So we do know that this is well supported by their local, by their market study.
Well,
and also taking into consideration other developments that are going on in the area.
Jump in there.
What?
Part of the problem is 47% of the people who live there have left because they couldn't afford to pay the taxes. And
So
the school system had tanked so poorly that they ended up moving out. So now 50% of the individuals that live in that particular community are women, 25% are youth. So they're addressing the youth side of it. So they're looking at single mothers with younger children below the ages of 18.
One bedroom doesn't work for that.
Exactly.
All right, thanks, Joyce. Any other questions or concerns for Julie? This is helpful.
One question. Mm-hmm. I love the all-electric. The electricity is expensive on the island. I wondered if solar was a consideration in this project, just to help offset some of the cost of the electric.
You know, I don't specifically know what Conifer did with regard to a solar analysis here. I can find out for you. I just don't have that in my notes.
Yeah, no, it's one of the only ways to offset. The other challenge with the transition is electricity is expensive, and so greater efficiency, which it sounds like they're providing, is great. But solar is the only other way to try and offset that cost because it's much cheaper than.
Yeah,
all right.
I don't have it at the tip of my tongue. Because it's Conifer, I am sure they've gone through that analysis, but I can respond with that specific answer for you.
Thank you.
Joyce, I'm sorry. Yeah, we need to move on this item because we're running out of quorum time.
I was just going to say that I'm sorry that I've missed the last two meetings, but as you know, I have health problems. But listening to some of the questions that are being asked now by board members, which are very policy oriented, much more so than they've been in the past. Wondering if we need to have more of a discussion of our guidelines in regard to how well they fit our view of policy.
Which guidelines, Joyce?
Well, for example, here where we're financing over 40% one-bedroom apartments for families.
You're talking about unit size, right?
Well, that's one of them,
or
yeah.
Or distribution, right?
Unit size, the lack of retail, and the lack of commercial properties, which might provide employment for residents when there's a problem with that in the neighborhood or in the community. I mean, just all of these issues which we're not used to thinking of because we think of ourselves purely as a housing agency that is just financing the housing that other people are developing. But I think what I'm hearing from the board is more of a desire for involvement in the planning process itself if we're going to be financing these projects. That, you know, perhaps we need to think about our involvement as an agency.
Well, I think it would start, a baseline would be a good understanding, as you said before, of guidelines and policies, for example, environmental requirements, right?
We have design guidelines also. We could go through our
design
and they're
developed, and design guidelines. And so we should probably start with that. I think that what you might seek is the ideal is, quite honestly, in government and in large agencies and the work that we do, hard to obtain. But the compromise could be something where, as members, as directors, we understand the framework here, right? So we know what to expect. And then to the extent that we think some of those guidelines come up short or don't advance policies that we would like to advance perhaps in a more aggressive way, well, that's a discussion with the Superintendent Commissioner because what we do, we implement statute, right? This is baked in law. And we can't rewrite the law ourselves, but we could certainly, once we know more, we could have a discussion with the Commissioner who then can, from a policy standpoint, advocate for things that she thinks are correct with the people on an annual basis that are, with the Governor's Office, frankly, because we work for the government around those policy ideas. But we will always have that function, under we have functions under the Public Authorities Act. These are public authorities, right? And it's true. We allocate the scarce state resources to important projects of affordable housing at the end of that process. But all these questions are absolutely important. Like, okay, so if we're getting it at the end, why is it this way? And why isn't this happening? Could this happen? To me, it starts, Ruth Ann, with a baseline understanding of why it is this way. And then to the extent that we want to see it be different, we could have those discussions. Again, we have to have them publicly. And Ruth Ann could take those policy recommendations from us at the appropriate time to the governor's team that works on this, right? That takes this, we follow laws that yield rules and regulations, and they're baked in statute. So we have those goals, but there's there's an advocacy process that we could pursue. Is that sort of more or less right?
Yeah, we can definitely start with an overview. In our design guidelines are things around apartment sizes and things like that. So we could do a sustainability guidelines review. We'll send them in advance, an affordable design guidelines review, just to sort of have general baseline for what we hold as our standards as these folks have deals come in.
I mean, and Julie, this isn't an MWVE project, right?
Conifer is not an MWVE.
The developer, no.
And they're partnered with a nonprofit, are they?
They are they're partnered with a local not-for-profit.
CDC Long Island.
In 1 second, I am going to...
I think it's CDCLI. CDC Long Island, I think, is their partner.
CDCLI, so it's the CDC of Long Island, that's right.
Who we work with.
And they'll have to obviously pursue the MWB requirements and when they do their contracting, right? So they're not as a developer, but the construction, for example, is raised.
Absolutely.
Like with all the projects.
In the interest, I understand time is not our friend. So I would just say this. Because what I'm hearing, and it's not too different from what a colleague has mentioned a moment ago, is that given all that you said, and I think we're all familiar with how government works, so that's not the issue. But perhaps we can take some time, not at a board meeting, perhaps that, and I'd be willing to, it doesn't have to even be in person, I guess, if it's not a public meeting or anything like that. An opportunity to perhaps have we call it a mission statement. I know we're doing one here now, but something that allows anybody that's looking to do business with state New York mortgage agencies to have a clearer picture, so that because it's not about a solar panel, obviously, or not about an apartment size only. What I'm hearing is a larger vision statement with respect to what we would like to see in terms of housing projects and proposals. And I don't think that's that I don't think it would be contrary to anything that the second floor would have issues. I'll leave those machinations too, but at least within the four walls of this agency, we can have a some more clear articulation of the kinds of concerns that you're hearing expressed here, whether it's MWBE, whether it's environmental concerns, all of that. I think we can be a lot more clear about that, so that we're not having these conversations at the end of a project. Nobody's going to hold up anything now. That I don't think would be particularly useful, but we can be prospective.
It's a good communications. Some of this is on the website, but it probably needs updating.
I mean, we have very extensive documents on that stuff, so we should send those so you all can see them, because you wouldn't necessarily know. And then
obviously, it's not being reflected in what we're seeing that ultimately comes out of that process. So I'm not arguing the language issue at all. I'm saying that perhaps as a board, we can have a clearer articulation of what we think is important, and then figure out a way to get that word out.
I mean, look, I think in this case, I don't know, Julie, if you want to talk about this a little more on the sort of the one bedroom thing. I think if their market study shows that the demand in that locality is for young people who are looking for single apartments, or even just adults who are single, because that's the driving population, I don't think we see it's our, as an agency, role to sort of to say we won't finance what the market, the affordable market, right, is demanding there, and say, like, you have to do 2-bedroom units. That's not really how we interact. I think we would say if that's what the Hempstead market and this nonprofit who's partnered with the, wants to see here. So it is sort of a funny tension of how much we overimpose what we think should get built in Hempstead versus what this development partnership and the town of Hempstead are bringing to us as what they've approved.
Somebody's suggesting that. I'm not suggesting that.
No, I'm just to comment on sort of Joyce's point about, like, why, building what we need more 2 bedrooms here. Like, it's sort of an interesting question, right, about how much we would push what we think should be here versus what comes through or what's supported.
Yeah, and I think another challenge that we confront, and particularly on this project, because of course we're always trying to wiggle into a place where everyone can feel comfortable with where we're at, right? Like, there's a million compromises that have to get made from the time that a deal comes to me in the pipeline till we sit here in front of you, right? So I think that often what I hear from localities, and this could be interesting as we think about the governor's sort of compact, is there's nervousness at the localities about additional affordable family housing, whether it's true or untrue, or just an idea that people have, that somehow this is going to overcrowd all the schools. And so this is another thing that our developers are negotiating as they're wiggling into the thing that everyone can get comfortable around. Now, I don't know for certain that this was part of the discussion in this particular project, but I might guess over 7 years it might have come up as some concern in some discussion. So that's also something that we try to balance as we get acceptance from the locality, because we need their pilot.
Right.
Is this a bad school district also, or a good school district?
Ruth, and I want to, I'm sorry, we got to move ahead.
Sorry, yeah.
Friends. We really do.
And
We're going to lose our quorum at 11.
Oh, okay.
And we have some ministerial duties that we really have to get done today.
Yeah.
So all the comments are duly noted. And I think we should continue to think, as Professor Ford has suggested, about some of these broader communication issues and being clear, right, up front about our aspirations.
Just real quick, because I think to Ruth Ann's point, I mean, the agency is constantly revising their design guidelines and being thoughtful about it, but it's things like work from home and how does that change how we think about things too, that also need to be sort of perhaps updated as we continue to update how we're thinking about stuff.
Yeah. Thanks, James. Good. All right. Thanks, everybody. Let's move on this one.
Okay. Now before SONYMA Mortgage Insurance Committee and the SONYMA Board are resolutions that were transmitted in connection with this item, assuming the first and second previously entered for the Mortgage Insurance Committee and the SONYMA Board. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Any abstentions or nays?
Opposed.
I was gonna say, I'm trying to get that.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
any abstention, any opposed? Yes, there's one, right?
Okay.
Anybody else? And any abstentions? Okay.
Alex, you have that?
Yep.
Okay, great. Okay, the motions are carried and the resolutions adopted. Now before the HFA members and the HFA Finance and Program Committee are resolutions to be adopted that were transmitted in connection with this item. Assuming the first and second previously entered for HFA and for the Finance Committee, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Objections? Abstentions? The motions are carried and the resolutions adopted. Now before the HTFC members is a resolution to be adopted that were transmitted in connection with this item. Assuming the first and second previously entered for HTFC, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The motion is carried and the resolution adopted.
Great. So should we continue to 7? One more Sunny May item? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Actually, yeah.
Are you afraid to?
What's that?
Are you afraid to?
Should we go to the
What are we
next
going
one?
to come up with next?
No, but I am trying to move things along for reasons that will become apparent. Resolutions approving an estimated excess balance in the mortgage insurance fund. Mike's going to explain this one.
So the excess balance is calculated by taking
Thanks, Julie.
the
Thanks,
surcharge collection and netting out operating expenses and additions to reserves for new commitments and new claims. The surcharge collection for the first 11 months was $173 million, and there was 11 million in February. So we project another 11 million in March for a total projected surcharge of 184 million. Operating expenses were about 8 million, which they've been for the past several years. And commitments for new reserves, additions to reserves for new commitments and new claims, including all of the loans that were approved today. We project that there'll be 124 million coming out of the special account, roughly 117 million for new commitments and about 7 million for new claims. So that leaves 52 million in excess balance in the special account.
Thanks, Mike. Any questions for Mike on the special account, the excess balance? Great. We have to do something, Diane? I think we do.
Yes, now before Sunny May Board is a resolution that was transmitted in connection with this item. Assuming the first and second previously entered for the Sunny May Board, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any objections? Any abstention? Okay, the motion is carried and the resolution adopted.
Terrific. So now we're going to do an additional item on the agenda. It was sent to the boards under separate cover. This is the resolution authorizing paid parental leave benefit for certain unrepresented employees. And Betsy's going to present this.
It's actually going to be presented by Sev Morrow.
Like I said, Seb's going to present this.
HR, who's in Albany, but I'm here to answer any questions.
In Albany. Good morning, everybody. As they've said, I'm Sev Morrow, Vice President of Human Resources. And I'm happy today to seek board approval for a brand new benefit called paid parental leave for unrepresented employees. As some of you may know, on January 10th, Governor Hochul had announced that she was going to be providing 12 weeks of paid leave for employees that have either had a newborn child, that are adopting, or have a foster child. And in that announcement, that was specifically set for New York State employees that are non-represented by any union, so MC employees. One of the great things about my job is I try to find parallel benefits that we can introduce across the board. So, and this is one of them, that with board approval, we would be able to add this benefit to the Housing Trust Fund Corporation, to AHC, Sunny May, and HFA. What really some highlights of this, in addition to the fact that we'd be able to provide this opportunity to MCs across the board, is that anybody who is full-time or at least 50% part-time can take advantage of this benefit. The employees would be on a full leave with pay status for up to 12 weeks, beginning on the day of the birth of the child, the placement of the adopted child, or the foster child. They have a 7-month period in which they can use that 12 weeks of paid time. It has to be taken in a lump sum, so there's no intermittent time that can be taken with that. And once you have used up the time, or let's say you've only used 4 weeks of it, if you come back to work, that would be, your use of the benefit for that 1-year period. You are able to use this benefit again after a 12-month period has gone by. The other nice thing about this is that if you're an employee and your domestic partner or husband or wife are also employed by the same organization, you can also participate in this benefit.
Seb, Betsy? Thank you so much, Chairman Adams. Thanks for the review. And I really regret sort of cutting you off there, but we're pressed for time.
Yeah,
We've
no
all
problem.
read you gave us a write-up in the board materials, which was really thorough. And I just wanted to interrupt a little bit here because you've done 3/4 of the presentation probably, to see if directors have any questions for you or Betsy about the proposal. I wanted your questions to come up as soon as possible.
Sure.
I would add one thing once questions are asked.
I just have I guess just one, Betsy, which is, does the policy, the policy mirrors, as I assume, as closely as possible, the policy for represented employees?
So the policy mirrors it basically.
So there's nothing in what you're asking us to do for non-represented employees that is any bit of a richer or better benefit than represented employees get?
I'm sorry. The policy mirrors identically to unrepresented employees. Right now, it has not been rolled out by the state. This was actually the thing that I was going to add. It has not been rolled out to represented employees. The moment we have permission to do that, we will do it across.
So why would we do it for our unrepresented employees before our union workers?
It's available to all the state.
It's available to our state unrepresented employees. So in the spirit of
oh, Robbie, so this is for the right. I'm sorry, for our authority employees.
We have about 300 unrepresented employees. About 72 of them are already getting this.
I'm just checking that if anything, the benefit to authority employees who are unrepresented is in no way better than what will ultimately be the benefit to be received by represented employees and the MC confidential departmental level, right?
That's my understanding, correct? Yes.
You guys, you know where I'm going with that, right?
I want to give exactly the same benefit to our represented employees once we have authority to do that. So right now, and this benefit is no richer than the benefit to stateside unrepresented employees.
And have we checked with Jesse about, or do we need to, no offense, I'm saying, about the fiscal impact of this?
I haven't
for the
checked
authority?
With Jesse about the fiscal impact.
I mean, I guess we wouldn't check with Jesse, would we?
I think you check yourself.
I checked with
yourself.
We check with Daryl.
And again, this is costly, right? So how do the authorities feel about the costs?
Well, I can let Stacy or Daryl answer the question who runs the authority, but we checked and they feel confident.
He's compromised because he would get it. I can put Daryl in the hot seat, but he's it's okay. You get my point. We can't be doing anything
we check
for management that is in excess of what is being done.
I agree.
Right? Yeah. Okay. Any other questions or concerns about this? I think my suspicion is we think it's the right thing to do, but under the fairness doctrine, right? All right?
Great.
Let's do it.
Okay, can I take it away?
Yeah.
Now before all the agencies is a resolution that was transmitted in connection with this item, assuming the first and second previously entered for HFA, SONYMA, AHC, and HTFC. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any objections or abstentions? The motion is carried and the resolution adopted.
Great. Seb, thank you again for the presentation, and forgive me for cutting you short a bit. We've got two informational items, the mid-February activity report and the current agency procurements contracts in the lobbying restricted period. There being no further business for SONYMA, Diana is going to ask for motions and seconds to adjourn our SONYMA meeting for this morning, March 9th.
Assuming the first and second previously entered for SONYMA, all in favor of adjourning, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, the motion is carried. The SONYMA meeting is adjourned. Our next meeting is scheduled for Thursday, April 13th. See you then.
All right, SONYMA board members, thank you. Thursday, April 13th. Let's hope by then a budget's in place. We'll get a big update from the commissioner on that. We have to very quickly move, while we still have quorum, of some of our other members to some items for AHC. So first, item 10, resolution authorizing award of grant funds for certain projects. and Diana's going to take care of this. I want to interrupt myself to thank our SONYMA board members for their service this morning. You're welcome to stay, but I suspect you've got better things to do, and we'll be in touch.
I'll be back.
Take care. Thanks, James. Thanks, Wallace.
Assuming the first and second previously recorded for AHC, okay, excuse me, now before AHC is a resolution that was transmitted in connection with this item. Assuming the first and second previously reported for AHC, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The motion is carried and the resolution is adopted.
Thank you. We have 11 is a resolution authorizing an amendment and ratification of regulations.
Now before AHC is a resolution that was transmitted in connection with this item. Assuming the first and second previously recorded for AHC, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion is carried and the resolution is adopted.
And we've got items to be considered by the Housing Trust Fund Corporation. These items are found in the Housing Trust Fund Corporation board book. That's a separate board book, as you know.
This is, I think, suggested.
And Diana's been whispering in my ear about a procedural strategy in which she suggests, if I heard your whispering correctly, that items 2,
well, all items. All
3,
items.
4, 5. Wait, what about Crystal? We're gonna 5. Okay, 6, 7, and 8, and 9, and that's your fire warden. And 10. These are all the HTFC members items, right?
11.
That we, if all the directors of HTFC, and I assume you have read the materials, if you don't have questions about any of these items or seek further information from the staff about these items, we could, I suspect, vote them, Alex and Diana, kind of in a block. Could we not?
Yes.
And then do we want to go back and go through them afterwards, or
well, no, I would just sort of, I mean, there are memos in the board book for each of these items that when people would present, they would just kind of put some highlights there. But all the materials are presented, and I would just suggest, only because we have 10 minutes and we have some hard stops, and because of our quorum requirements, we're losing our quorum at 11. I would suggest that we do these all together.
Right.
Unless board members, having reviewed these items, have some specific questions, and we could just skip the presentation part of it.
Yeah, because we do have to spend a minute on the governance issues, right, that I flagged at the very beginning of the meeting. Anyway, any objection to the idea of voting these HTFC items as a block? Hearing none. Diana?
Well,
Okay.
I just want to make one note. I do have to recuse myself on the legacy cities.
On which one?
On legacy cities.
Legacy cities, right.
And we'll
Okay.
follow the same procedure so that you don't have to recuse
Right.
yourself because you're needed.
Yes, but I just want to raise
Yep.
it again.
Yeah, good
Okay.
point.
So let's see if I get so if everyone is okay with that, it's a little not typical, but in the interest of moving these items, I would just sort of say, so here what I would sort of say, now, let me see if I get this right, Alex. I would say now before the HTFC members is a resolution authorizing items 1 through 13 on the agenda. Assuming.
Oh, can we pause at 12? Is 13 not the item, Alex, that has to do with?
It's 12. I think that's the
I'm sorry.
IAG charter.
Let's do 2 through 11, Diana, if we could.
Okay.
Items 2 through 11.
Mm-hmm.
And there are resolutions authorizing the items described in 1 through 11. Assuming the first and second previously entered for the HFC board, all in favor of voting in favor of items, it's really 2 through
11.
2 through 11.
Yeah.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 We will note the recusal, but then including for quorum purposes on item 3.
Right.
The motion is carried and the resolution is adopted. We'll now move to item 12.
Great. I've got that. Thanks, Diana. Thanks for everybody for doing it that way. Again, if you've got questions or concerns about any items, you can speak to the staff at any time. And also to all the staff that were poised to present those items, our apologies. We know how hard you prepare and that you've got really good and helpful information. So thanks for your understanding as we try to move forward. But we've also saved you some time, I'd like to think. Diana, now we have item 12, resolution authorizing amendments to the internal audit group charter and the rescission of the Governor's Office of Storm Recovery Internal Audit Department Charter. So this is important. Diana is gonna.
I think we could do it together with item 13, and we could do those two together. Amy Zamenhof was going to present on both of them. They both relate to these changes reflecting the integration of what was formerly known as the Governor's Office of Storm Recovery into the now Office of Resilient Homes and Community.
Right.
So again, I think on these two, I would put the board members, if you have questions or concerns about this, they really have been meant to kind of make our governing documents, both in the case of the Internal Audit Group Charter, as well as our bylaws, reflect that shift. They really are kind of ministerial, administrative, so that our documents reflect the reality of that integration. That was sort of the intent there.
I think that's spot on, right? And
Yes.
well described. Alex, if I could ask you, again, David Price sent me some helpful information as chair, and I know that you responded a couple. Could you just give a brief summary? Joyce, we had some, in between the last meeting, some input from GOSER staff about the proper setup of the audit functions for what was GOSER as GOSER transitions into the agency.
So I think the two main points that Mr. Price raised into the first draft that we prepared is in the first paragraph under internal audit plan, where he wanted to make sure that we corrected the materials to note that the audit plan has to be approved by the board and the audit committee. The prior version had an and/or, so that senior management could do that, and he appropriately reminded everyone that under the state law, the board is the internal auditor, and the internal audit function reports obviously to the board, so there is a same line, but ultimately you can't have the and/or. Absolutely correct. The second one, I think also, so one is the audit plan and the other is the reporting of the internal auditor. So on both of those, there has to be a level of independence. And when we corrected both of those, right, Amy?
Yep, everything has been corrected, and it's like, as you already said, we're just rescinding the separate GOSER policy and integrating any changes into the amendment of the DHCR HTFC charter for the internal audit to include that office and any federally funded requirements.
And the third point, Ken, that we didn't address here that was made by Mr. Price concerns the role of the audit committee in terms of appointing the auditor, remuneration. That is not affected at all by this charter. The audit committee.
Because that's already in the old document.
That's exactly. That's in the audit committee charter, right. And that is not being changed, and that continues.
Right. And I hope David sees that consistency. Right. And I thank him again for his input. I hope the record will reflect that. Thank you, Diana. And Alex, Diana, I think you want to, do you want to do a twofer?
I'm going to do, I think we need to do a vote of the audit committee, and then we need to vote of the let me get through those two.
Yeah.
So assuming the first, okay, now before the HTFC audit committee members are two resolutions with respect to item 12 and item 13. I would say that assuming, as described in our board materials,
yep.
Assuming the first and second previously entered for the HFC audit committee with respect to items 12 and item 13, all in favor, please say aye.
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 The motion is carried and the resolution adopted. I now move to the HTFC governance committee. Members of the resolution approving amendments to the HTFC bylaws noted in item 13. Assuming the first and second previously entered for the HFC governance committee, all in favor, please say aye.
Governance for item 11.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so just let's do two first. Why don't we do two first?
Yep.
And then Sarah, remind me. Thank you so much. Okay, so
Yep,
for
we
item
need
two,
audit for 2.
we need audit for 2. Right. So this is audit committee. Resolution approving the fiscal year 2023-2024 administrative and programmatic budget. Now before the HFC Audit Committee, members is a resolution approving the Housing Trust Fund Corporation's fiscal year 2023-2024 administrative and programmatic budget. Assuming the first and second previously entered for the HTFC Audit Committee, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion is carried and the resolution adopted. Sarah, what do I do next? 12, did you say?
We need governance for 11.
Okay, governance for 11. So now before the HTFC, okay, item 11 was the resolution authorizing amendments to the procurement and contract guidelines. Now before the HTFC Governance Committee members is a resolution authorizing amendments to the procurement and contract guidelines. Assuming the first and second previously entered for the HTFC Governance Committee, all in favor, please say aye.
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 The motion is carried.
The last is the full board for number 12.
Okay.
Correct.
Item 12, resolution authorizing amendments to the internal audit group charter and the rescission of the Governor's Office of Storm Recovery Internal Audit Department charter. Okay, so now before the HTFC members is a resolution authorizing amendments to the internal audit group charter and the rescission of the Governor's Office of Storm Recovery Internal Audit Department charter. Assuming the first and second previously entered for the HTFC board, all in favor, please say aye.
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 The motion is carried and the resolution adopted. Thank you, the legal team, for keeping me
Thank you, Jesse.
track of this. Thank you.
And thank you, Jesse, who I'm pretty sure has to run out.
Yes, he is currently running out.
And he is running now. The remainder, Diana, I believe, of our agenda items are informational. There'll be no presentation unless requested by members. 14 is a review of the secret Type 2 summaries. 15, a review of Clean Energy Initiative project awardees. 16, a review of a contract with CGI Information Management Systems and Management Consultants, Inc. And 17, a review of the agency procurements and contracts in the lobbying restricted period. Anyone have any questions about those matters?
I have
Yes.
one quick question. So the Clean Energy Initiative, this is, now we're allowing it in HTFC projects. That's the new thing here? On 15?
I forget on 15. Is that what this item was? No, so.
So this is just to advise the board of projects that have been awarded. In our original resolution, we had the ability to award both HTFC and HFA projects. And this is an informational item just of the projects that have been awarded since the last informational item was presented to the board.
Got it. Okay, thank you. Sorry.
No.
I know we're rushing here.
No, I'm sorry.
That's good that you flagged that. Well, page 123 of the HTFC board book, if others want to check it out. And then I think we're at the end. Thank you, Diana. There being no further business for HFA, HTFC, AHC boards, Diana will please ask for motions and seconds to adjourn today's meetings.
Assuming the first and second previously entered for the HFA, HTFC, and AHC boards, all in favor of adjourning, please signify by saying aye.
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 The motions are carried. The meetings are adjourned. Our next HFA, AHC, and HTFC board meetings are scheduled for Thursday, April 13th at 9 a.m. Thank you, everybody, board members, for cooperating. You know, any questions, please don't hesitate to ask.
And I think, Diana, this is somewhat of a seasonal issue because Jesse obviously is trying to negotiate, a very large state budget on behalf of the governor, and had a hard stop at 11, and so that's why we were losing the quorum requirement. But we needed to take care of these items. So good job. All right.